Welcome to Omelie's 7th Battleforge map making tutorial. Today I'll be teaching you about spawn script. First I'm going to go through the different conditions you'll probably use. This first one here is a test to see if any player units are within range of whatever you tag mob spawn building. This next one checks to see if a timer has passed a certain amount of time. Here I use a variable. You could also change this to a number, but the variable works fine because then you can use some script like this above script here and change it depending on the difficulty level of the map. The next one down is building is alive. There's also squad is alive and entity is alive. These two are particularly aimed at buildings and squads, obviously, and that's just a simple check to see if a squad or a building or an entity is alive. Next one down is a flag. This is basically an on or off variable. You're just checking to see if the variable is true or if it's false. It's a pretty simple one. Next thing I'm going to show you is the actions you'll use in spawning script. The first lot is obviously the spawning commands. This first one here, player squad spawn, doesn't actually tag any of the mobs you spawn, so you can't send them to any particular spot on the map through script after you spawn them, because they're not actually identifiable. This one you can change the amount without crashing your map, so you could have 10 here if you wanted. At the moment I'm using a variable again, so I can change it depending on the difficulty of the map, but you could just use numbers here for your squad ID if you wanted. Next one down is the player squad spawn with tag. This one you only want one in your amount section. This will spawn a mob with a tag, and again I'm using the variable, but you could just have a number. The IDs that you use for player, spawn, squad, and well, both of these ones just here are a different set of IDs that you use to the player card squad fake play with tag spawn code, which goes off card IDs opposed to squad IDs, as you can see just here. This one will get you any cards that are actually in game. It's a bit more useful than these other ones. But yeah, that's it for that bit of script. I tend to include these sorts of statements, my moving statements, within the same spawn code, so I'll spawn the units and then send them to either a mob path. For a mob path you use squad checkpoint goto, that way it will go along the path. If you use a squad goto command for a path ID, you'll get some strange results with where the unit actually goes, and it can be really frustrating. For the squad goto command, you use this for points on a map, so a single location, not a group of locations. The last one that you might want to include in your actions section is a map timer start. This is basically just to restart the timer after you spawn the units, so you can have a constant 15 seconds spawning. So in your conditions you'll check, where is it? Here. This will be 15 seconds. You'll check to see if 15 seconds has passed. If 15 seconds pass, you spawn the units, and then you restart the timer by doing that. An alternate way to do this script just here, player squad is in range, is to use conditions or, and then you put in your player squatters range for the different players that you want. This is another way to do it, so you don't have to have it in a for do statement, which is how you use the pl dot dot or the dot dot pl. You'll have to have it inside a for do statement. That covers the basics, and now I'll go and show you a couple of examples. First off, you want to excuse me. You'll want to set up your map timers inside a OnTimeEvent, and any variables that you're using you'll want to start as well. So if you're using flags, you'll want to set them to true or false depending on what you want. Yeah, that basically you need to start all those at the start of the map. I've just copied a bunch of these statements that we went through the last time, and I will just copy and paste some conditions and actions so you can see how it works. First one is a one-time event. This will be a one-time spawn. For this I will use a map timer actually. So the map starts up and we start the timer, and since this is a one-time event we don't need the respawn in here. And after 200 seconds I want to spawn at a building a group of units. These units will not have tags because I'm just going to leave them at the building. I'm not going to move them around. So here we go. I'll run you through this. The condition for this is after the map starts, because we've already initialized our timer at the start of the map. After 200 seconds we want to spawn 5 units of whatever ID we're going to be changing in our statement up here. I think this one here is thugs and something else. I have it in one of my other scripts. Anyway. And we'll spawn 5 of them at the building and we'll just let them sit there. Simple, easy, one-time event spawn. The next one is an OnEvent spawn. This one's going to be a little more complicated and a little more useful, I think. For our conditions, we're going to set in a couple of these actually. Here we go. Grab all these. This time we'll leave in the respawn timer, and as you can see at the top I already have my spawn timer in. So on standard difficulty the respawn timer equals 30, on advanced it equals 20, on expert it equals 10, so every 10 seconds that condition will actually be true. I'm just going to leave this as player 1, we don't need the PL in there. But you could, if you had multiple players, use the PL and then put it inside a for do statement. Okay. This time we're going to be spawning multiple units, and since we're using multiple units, we're going to need a couple of these. We'll do 3 units, just as an example. And for these examples, it doesn't really matter which one of these two I use, as they're basically the same. It's just they use different databases for the IDs.